you were served with a domestic violence restraining order, but there's no allegation in the paperwork that you were actually physically violent, that you threatened violence, any kind of violence at all, you may be a little bit confused. But in the state of California, somebody can get a restraining order against you for, amongst other things, disturbing someone's peace. And so in this video, I'm going to be explaining what that means and going through 5 defenses to an allegation that there should be a restraining order against you that goes on your record permanently because you disturbed someone's peace. My name is Veronica. I'm a domestic violence defense attorney here in California, and I help people put their cases behind them so that they can enjoy their lives and their freedom. I'm also the creator of a course called Defeat the DVRO, in which I teach you from start to finish everything that you need to know to represent yourself at your restraining order hearing and win. So if that is something that you are interested in, you can get your free first class in the course via the link in the description box down below. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's talk about disturbing someone's peace, what counts as disturbing the peace, and go through those 5 defenses. The definition of disturbing someone's peace in the state of California for domestic violence restraining orders is destroying the mental or emotional calm of that person. So this can be in the form of text messages, voicemails, maybe there is video where you said some bad things. I mean, typically, when there is a domestic violence restraining order, it is because a relationship very recently ended. And when relationships are ending, we all say things, or most of us say things that are regrettable, right? So let's say that you did send some texts that you're looking at now that you know a judge is going to see that are regrettable, that are bad. You call the other person bad names, you say some really nasty things to them. How can you defend against that? What can you possibly say? How can you try to spin it? All right, let's go through these defenses. Defense number 1. You were temporarily upset for a good reason, but you have now moved on. Let's say that you came home from work one day and you found your spouse in bed with your sibling. You're going to be really upset about that, right? Most people would be. And that is an extreme example of this. You send some pretty bad text messages to your partner. Well, you were upset for a good reason, not because you are a controlling person, not because you are a violent person, but because something happened that temporarily made you really upset. Now the relationship is over. You are not going to be catching that person in bed with your sibling again. And of course, it's an extreme example. You have to think about what counts as a good enough reason. And the thing with these restraining orders is that there are not hard and fast rules. Most of this is just in a gray area. And judges are actually told to look at the totality of the circumstances, look at everything when they are making this decision. Now, the hard part there is that many times they will give each hearing only 10 to 20 minutes, so how much of the totality of the circumstances can you get? How I would explain this, if I called my partner, I don't know, the C word, that comes up a lot in these disturbing the peace cases because I caught my partner in bed with my sibling, I would say, Your Honor, I am so embarrassed that I sent those text messages. The reason why I sent them is because I did catch my partner. I was very surprised to catch my partner in bed with my sibling. And so, yes, I did send those messages. I regret it. It wasn't to disturb their peace or abuse them in any way. I was just really shocked and upset. Defense number 2, the other person's threshold for disturbance is very high. Now remember, for something that you say to count as disturbing someone's peace, you have to destroy their mental or emotional calm. If you were sending the other person text messages where you use swear words, you describe things in an explicit way, you say really mean and hateful things to them, but they did the same thing, then maybe their threshold for disturbance is very high. I mean, think about things that you might send to your friend, for example, as a joke that your friend thinks is hilarious. But if you were to send that same thing to your grandma's peace might actually be disturbed. Your grandma might actually qualify for a restraining order. Everyone's threshold for disturbance is different. And the other person doesn't necessarily have to use the same language that you use or talk the same way you do. That's just one way to prove that their threshold for disturbance is very high. But it's not necessary. I mean, for example, let's say you sent really nasty text messages to the other person and they responded with LOL or a laughing emoji, something like that, and they kept the conversation going and they didn't act disturbed, then that also could show that their threshold for disturbance is very high. Maybe they have posted on social media and used similar language to you. That's another way to prove it. Now, if you are planning to show any of this, be careful to curate it and make sure that you can present it quickly, because the judge might not understand at first where you're going with it. And the judge might say, respondent, this is about whether you abused the other party, not about whether they abused you. But you are not offering this information to show that the other party abused you. You are offering it to show that the other party was not disturbed, that you didn't destroy their emotional well-being by sending these text messages. They were fine. So get to your point very quickly. Don't expect the judge to look through every single social media post that the other person has or every single text message that they presented. Get some good examples ready for the judge. Number 3, you thought you were blocked. I know that this may sound a little bit silly, but this is actually a pretty good defense, because if you didn't think that the other person was getting your messages, you didn't know that you could have disturbed their peace. And if as soon as you found out, if as soon as they responded and said, stop sending this stuff to me, or maybe somebody else told you, or you got served with the TRO, you stopped. Your defense is sort of that when you were sending these messages or when you were leaving voicemails, which by the way, if the other person blocks you, they still get your voicemails, at least on an iPhone, and they can still collect them and use them against you, but maybe you didn't know that. You were sort of using it as a journal. You thought you were just throwing it out there into the universe, and you were horrified. This is your defense. You were horrified to find out that actually the other person was getting them the whole time. So you weren't actually trying to contact them. You were just sort of sending this out there. It was just sort of cathartic for you. Defense number 4. How do I say this in a way that doesn't upset YouTube? Okay, so sometimes the way that you speak to somebody could be sex related in a way. I mean, okay, so if you are in a relationship with somebody that has one person as the dominant person, one person as submissive, sometimes the dominant person is going to send messages to the other person, maybe, that sound, really domineering, obviously, that sound like they sound like coercive control. They sound like the other person is in charge of you and your body. And, there are many different flavors of this, right? But if you take these text messages out of context and show a judge that is not familiar with this stuff, then they may think this sounds really bad. And so that is sometimes a defense. So one way to use this defense is to find other times that you use the same sort of controlling language and the other side obviously loved it. Or if you can find things that the other person sent you showing that they like this stuff. Maybe you met each other on a website where maybe their profile is up and it says that they like this. Maybe it's the type of website itself, and that can be helpful. That can be a good defense. Defense number 5. You temporarily had a mental health issue that was unaddressed, but you have addressed it now. Okay, so sometimes this happens because someone has a diagnosed mental health condition. Sometimes maybe you just had anger issues, but now you're getting treatment. I recommend, even if it's just anger issues or you think it just is, be in the care of a doctor. And I also recommend, and I know anyone who has a restraining order against them doesn't really like this, but if possible, that you continue the hearing for some period of time. Usually respondents don't like that because you have the temporary restraining order against you. And in your case, it may or may not make sense to do so. But if you can show the judge that now that you are getting help, you're getting treatment for this, you are not a threat to anyone. So the more time that you have been fine, that obviously whatever treatment you are getting is working, the better. I hope you found this video helpful. And look, if you are thinking about representing yourself at your restraining order hearing, it's not a crazy idea. You can represent yourself and win. But you have to know what to do. You have to have the tools. And you can keep watching all the videos you can find on YouTube, on the internet, hoping to find the answers. I have a lot of videos about this stuff. You could watch all of my videos and maybe you would get all the information that you need, but that would take a lot of time. And when you're learning something new, you don't know what you don't know. And in my course, Defeat the DVRO, I give you everything that you need to know on a silver platter, make it as easy as possible for you with templates. So get your free first class. You literally have nothing to lose. And if you did find this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.